Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
All right, RJ, how does one follow up last week's Weezer cold open? Because that was pretty good. Got a lot of people talking, which is what it was intended to do. Well, in my not so expert opinion, all right, this is how we're going to follow it up. I'm going to first ask you an impossible to answer question. I mean, it's not technically impossible, but if you answer it, something's fishy. And then I'm going to follow that up with a question in which you're going to have to give an opinion, which I know is your favorite thing in the world to do, is go on the record and give opinions.
Oh, boy.
All right. So I thought I'd pull inspiration from, one of the Kraken's most memorable moments from this past season, which, by the way, is going to be the theme of both this week's episode and next week's episode. Everybody is Kraken memorable moments. So, get ready for all that as we celebrate podcast episode 50, RJ. I know a good cold open would
50
open
episodes.
I know. So we have lots of fun stuff for that. We're going to get to it later, though, the big 50 stuff, because we got to get through this first, RJ. So first, I'm pulling inspiration for this week's cold open from a memorable Kraken moment last year. Here's the impossible question. Which moment am I thinking of?
Okay. What moment are you thinking of? Is it one that we're going to be talking about later today? I'll answer your question with a question. Okay.
It should be, because I feel like for most people, this is probably like one of the top 4 or 5 moments they'll think of when thinking of that inaugural Kraken season.
Okay, this is a tough one. This is the impossible one, not one where I have to give the opinion.
Correct.
Okay. Something Adam Larson did. All right, when he walked around a defender and scored 5-hole, and I pick which game because I think he did it a few times.
Of course he did it a few times, because he's like sneaky skilled, and he's, if he wanted to be, he could put up Cale Makar numbers. We all know that, right? Like, come on.
He's just too cool for that.
Yeah, that's all. No, it's the Morgan Geeky infamous Pizza Hut presser, RJ.
Oh, yes. Oh yeah, that was a fantastic moment. I mean, it should have made this list. It really should have.
Yeah, I feel like that's in everybody's top 5 moments from the inaugural Kraken season. It was such a fun look into an NHL player's personality. It was relatable. It inspired people within our community to go and get pizza over the next 48 hours, right? Like, it was this big deal moment. And so I wanted to build my cold open question around that. And so this is the question, RJ. What parts of national pizza chains, pizza things, would you use to build your best pizza? So, for example, who do you think has the best crust? Who's got the best sauce? Who's got the best cheese? Who's got the best toppings, kind of thing? Like, in your mind, what would be the perfect pizza using only, like, the big national chains? All right? And so
this is an hour-long podcast topic on its own.
I know. It should be. But, so I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. All right? Because I'm gonna give you mine right now, so you can take a moment, because I know that this is, it's a big deal, and you got to be careful with what you say here. So I think Morgan Geeky.
You're starting with Domino's crust, aren't you?
No, I'm not actually. I think Morgan Geeky is gonna like mine, because I'm gonna say the best crust is Pizza Hut. I'm gonna say the best sauce is Domino's, because it's got the right like balance of like sweetness and everything. And then the best cheese is also Pizza Hut, and I feel like that's the least controversial, or it should be. Like, Pizza Hut has the best cheese. And then no toppings for me, because all you need is cheese and extra sauce on a pizza.
Okay, well, there's the real controversy. Okay, so I'm glad my opinions are not going to be as bad as that. But so I'm going to go with Domino's crust then, because I like the little seasonings on it. I think that's delicious. The sauce, I still have to go with Domino's. You're right. It's got that perfect blend. Like, yes, the sauce is the best. Cheese. All right, you ready for me to get roasted here?
Oh, Little
you
Caesars?
Remember what pizza I would? No, gosh, no. That Little Caesars isn't really pizza. There's my other take. Yeah. But you remember where I would always have us get pizza whenever we would have get-togethers and hang out at my house.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Papa John's. Papa John's. Let the hate come in.
That is not the best cheese. That's insane.
We're gonna, Dylan. Okay, this is a little bit of a spoiler for later in the episode, but like we're gonna open up the phone line, and everyone's just gonna be mad at us for our pizza takes. We're not gonna get the voicemails that we want.
No, we're not. But you know what? That's what this is there for. I just felt like pizza has been such a big part of our relationship over the years, RJ. How could we celebrate a 50th episode of a podcast we've done together without making it about pizza and without arguing about said pizza?
Yep, have to do it. The one food I know that you're gonna want to eat when you come over to my house.
Exactly. I'm surprised you didn't just talk about the Papa John's garlic sauce, because that's really what you
so
crave.
good. It's so good.
If you
Must have.
If you could buy that by the gallon, you would. I know.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I alluded to it earlier. We've already kind of touched on it. Memorable moments are going to be the theme for this week. We're going to go through kind of the top 10 most memorable moments from the Kraken season, both give our takes on those. And then, as you mentioned, when we open up the phone lines, later on, we're going to give a number for everybody because we want to hear from everybody else what your most memorable moment was from this first Kraken season. Because as we were thinking about what we want to do for this 50th episode, we knew we wanted it to be special. And the bottom line was, no matter what we thought of, we knew we couldn't do it without the community, because without all of you guys, we wouldn't still be doing this. And certainly just our enjoyment of the Kraken season would not have been the same without being there every post-game live with everybody to talk about each and every game, without communicating daily with everybody on Twitter, Instagram, and Discord now. You know what I mean? Like, none of this journey would be the same without everybody else. So we knew Eddie's celebration had to involve everybody. So we're actually splitting up this podcast into 2 parts. We're going to do part 1 today, where we talk about our most memorable moments and talk about those. And then next week, it's just going to be all about hearing from the community and what all of your favorite moments were from the Kraken's first season. So I'm going to give out a number later. You can also email us. You can text, come at us on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. And next week, we're just going to, read everybody's favorite moments and talk about them, or play the voicemail. So if you do call into the and leave a voicemail to the number, know that will be part of the podcast next week. So just fair warning there. But before we can dive into that, RJ, as the deep dive into favorable moments, we got to do our quick hit segment. We do have to talk about the news, because there actually was a couple news items this week.
Yeah, we did get some. It is August, but it feels like the Kraken are sprinkling a few of these in every week to talk about. And I guess first we'll cover the Kraken's official announcement that Eddie Olczyk will be joining the broadcast team. This is something that we knew about for a little while. It was kind of rumored, the news was out there, but the Kraken made the official announcement. And we did get a media availability with him, with John, with JT, with Todd Lywicki, star-studded media availability for sure. It was a fun one too. I mean, Todd Lywicki starts speaking and he's like, hang on a second. And he goes and runs to the other room and gets on John and JT's camera behind them and talks about like, hey, these guys are awesome. And they're just as excited for Edzo joining the broadcast as I am. It was just a fun kind of lighthearted media availability. But I will get to kind of my 3 main takeaways, because we definitely had some questions going into this, right? About kind of what Edzo's role is going to be, what the broadcast is going to look like, and how everyone's kind of going to get along. So I first of all, I guess everyone said all the right things kind of about being happy to work with each other. The chemistry is going to be great. And they all did seem kind of grateful to have just more talent in the booth. The Kraken broadcast last season, they had a lot of talent there. I'd say the deepest broadcast in the NHL. And they made it work. They made it where everyone kind of showcased their talents and it highlighted the best of everyone. So I'm confident they can make it work this season with another great voice alongside everyone. So that was, pretty much as I expected. Everyone's quite happy with that. Number 2, and this was probably my biggest question. How is it all going to work out logistically? It's a 3-man booth. It's going to look different than what last season was. And basically the answer is they're still figuring it out. Edzo said, we have lots of things to discuss. We've got lots of discussions still left to happen. So I think they don't know for sure at this point. It still is going to be flexible. They have to work around Olczyk's TNT schedule, and that schedule isn't out yet. So once that comes out, they figure out which games he'll be on, which games he won't. I think that'll provide some more clarity on things. And as far as someone going between the benches, Didn't give an answer for sure on that. Enzo talked about how great it is, to have someone there and kind of giving perspective from that spot. Didn't give a hint, who it might be or when that might happen. But I think everything's still kind of on the table at this point. So they'll figure that out. And then finally, third takeaway, the front office role, which is something that was rumored that maybe there would be some kind of front office role for Olczyk, and that it's something maybe he was looking for in Chicago. The Chicago area podcast talked about, don't be surprised if there's that role. I had my hand raised trying to ask that question. It was, there were a lot of questions in that presser. Never got around to me, so I didn't get to ask. I'm still curious. If we talk to Ron Francis maybe around training camp, it's something I'd like to ask him, but we still don't know about that. And yeah, I guess we'll see. So Dylan, I mean, did you, I'm sure you saw kind of my takeaways, my tweeting from that. What'd you think of the presser and ultimately about the answers that we got about what the broadcast is going to look like?
Yeah, well, as far as the presser goes, I mean, you said star-studded. I was just like trying to calculate like what is the net worth of everybody I'm seeing in these shots, right? It's pretty up there. Yeah, I think the big thing everybody was most curious about was the logistics of how this is all going to work. And, are we going to see 3 people just up in the booth for all those games? And I'm getting the feeling that that's what they're going to do. Like, it just really like the fact that they haven't designated, like say JT, just as an example, to go down between the glass tells me that they probably want to do the 3 people up top, which can work. I'm struggling to think of times where I've really enjoyed it, having all 3 people up there. Like the biggest examples that pop into my brain are like, Monday Night Football the last couple of years, right? They've had a 3-man booth and it's been okay. There's been, plenty of like baseball times where there's been groups of 3 up in the booth and it's fine. I love that in hockey you have that opportunity to have somebody down there between the benches who can see things at ice level because it's a completely different perspective, that can be there to report on the chirping between, benches and what the players are saying and what they're talking about when they're arguing with the ref or something like that. Like, I think that's so dynamic and so unique to the sport of hockey. And that is like, the one thing I will always give Pierre Maguire credit for was he came up with that, and that was absolutely a genius move, and it changed hockey broadcasting forever. And so I, of course, want that for the Kraken, because the other thing I was thinking of, and obviously I haven't watched like local broadcasts for all 31 other teams now, but I don't think anybody else has that as part of just their local broadcast coverage. Obviously nationally we get that a lot, but I don't think anybody has somebody between the glass.
Certainly not full time. I know most of my experience watching broadcasts over the years has been with the Sharks. I know occasionally if they had a third guy or something, they would put someone between the glass. There was Jamie Baker and Brett Hedican sometimes would would both be on, and one of them would move behind the glass. But certainly not full time. I don't recall seeing that.
Yeah, and so I think that would be like a really cool, unique thing to just we already know that the Kraken's coverage for all this stuff is basically the best it can be to begin with, just because of all the people involved and how well they've handled it and all that stuff. Ruth's done a fantastic job. I just think that would be the thing that would just be like, oh yeah, as we were talking about it, right? They finished second, I believe, in that athletic thing, right? For coverage.
Yep, number 2.
Yeah, that's the thing that like puts you over the top, and it's like everybody around the league would have to look and say like, okay, it's not just the personalities and the skilled people they have involved. They have that too, which is just, that's next level. You know what I mean? So I still want to see that, but just based on the feeling and all the information we have been getting throughout this process, I'm not sure we're going to.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We'll see. I think Eddie would agree with you, though. He talked about how great it is to have someone down there at ice level. So we'll see what they decide to do. It wouldn't surprise me if they changed it up a little bit too, if they kind of called some audibles and worked with different things in the schedule. So we'll see what it ends up being. But just really excited to have Enzo on board. And yeah, it was good to hear from him.
Yeah, no, I'm still super pumped for it. Like we were kind of talking about just now, that a great broadcast is somehow getting better.
Yep, amazing what they've been able to do.
Yep.
So, all right, moving on to the second bit of news, and this one relates to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. We knew they were going to have 4 games in the Seattle area before moving to their permanent home of Acrisure Arena in the Coachella Valley. And now we know when and where those games are going to be. So they're going to have 4 games, as I mentioned. The first one will be Friday, October 21st. That one's against Abbotsford. It will be at the Kraken Community Iceplex at 3 o'clock Pacific time. Now, this is a sold-out private event, according to a team press release. And as are both games, we'll see at the Kraken Community Iceplex. Now, I believe that it would be rink 1, and it only seats 500. Anyone who's been there for an open practice knows just how small of a rink that is if you're going to have an actual pro game there. So it's going to be very limited seating. And as we'll get to in the second game, we'll see, where those tickets go. So the next game would be Sunday, October 23rd, also against Abbotsford. And that one is at Climate Pledge Arena. So that one's at 6 p.m. And the Kraken actually play earlier that day against the Chicago Blackhawks at 11 a.m. So we're going to have a fun kind of not back-to-back. What's it called? Doubleheader. Yeah, we're going to have a fun doubleheader there where we get the Kraken and then the Coachella Valley Firebirds. If you are going to that Kraken game, highly recommend getting tickets for the Firebirds game afterwards. I mean, who wouldn't want more hockey, right? Just fill the day with some hockey. And by the way, tickets go on sale to the general public for that one August 22nd at 10 a.m. That is, I believe, 6 days from now. Yeah. Yep. So be ready for that one. The next game is Friday, October 28th against Calgary. And that one's at Angel of the Winds Arena in Everett. So that one will be at 7 o'clock p.m. So tickets also go on sale same time, August 22nd, 10 a.m., both of them via Ticketmaster. So that's how you can get your tickets. But I think it's cool that they're going to another junior team's bar, and we saw with the 3-rink rush. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this episode, how great it is when the teams in the Kraken organization get out to some of these junior rinks. It's always a great atmosphere.
Yeah, and that was kind of what a lot of us thought was going to happen when we knew that Coachella Valley was going to have to play some games up in the Seattle area. We just kind of all assumed like, oh, well, hey, just do the same thing. Go hit all the different locales, right? And let's make that happen. So that's why this whole KCI thing is so interesting to me. Because obviously it's going to create like a very unique atmosphere. I mean, we've been talking about the Coyotes, right, playing in this college barn, and it's going to be small and intimate and all that stuff. It's not going to get much more intimate than playing at Kraken Community Iceplex in front of 500 people. So I'm really intrigued to see how well that does. I think it's going to be fantastic for the people who can attend. I think we know now kind of right that it's going to be open to season ticket holders, and they have to do something to get in. It sounded like, based on what I was seeing. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know if they're going to rope off those couple tables of like 32 Bar and Grill that'll have viewing access, or if you're just going to camp out up there all day or something. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But I still think that it's a really cool concept that you're going to have, the second highest level of professional hockey in North America playing at your practice facility, playing there where people are doing, potentially a public skate 25 feet away, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think that is a fun thing. And I think it's good for the community and everything. And then, yes, I mean, I've always been on board with getting them into the junior barns just because I think that's so much fun, and you get to, continue to build that, funnel those already hockey fans towards the Kraken and make them that much more involved in the overall process of what the Kraken are trying to do by having the Firebirds play in front of them.
Exactly. You have ready-made hockey fans already there. And yeah, giving them exposure to the Kraken organization at all levels is going to be a great idea. So looking forward to that game in Everett. And then I'll just hit this last one here. Saturday, October 29th against Calgary at KCI, 3 p.m. I believe the Kraken have a game that day, a home game at 7 p.m. So I guess if you're going to the Firebirds game at 3, maybe just then you take the light rail down to Climate Pledge and hit the Kraken game if you can. And you're right. So this It says this event is sold out. Limited tickets will be available through a season ticket member lottery for Kraken and Firebirds season ticket members. So that's kind of how we found out about the schedule at first, is that season ticket holders started seeing emails about, okay, here's when the games are and here's how we're giving out the tickets. So apparently it's going to be a lottery for the season ticket holders, and pretty competitive one at that, because there are a lot more season ticket holders than there are seats. But it certainly will be a great experience for anyone lucky enough to be there.
Yeah, good luck to all involved. My last thing on it, RJ, is just to ask you, like, do you think it's strange that for the one at Climate Pledge, they're not just folding in the tickets to the Firebirds game into people who already have tickets for that Kraken game earlier in the day?
Interesting. I mean, yeah, you could do that, I suppose, where the ticket kind of gets you into both. But I think they probably, well, one, want to sell more tickets, and two, also want to have an opportunity for different people to go, because not everyone that can make it out to see a Kraken game, let's be honest, they're more expensive, those tickets. Could go see the Firebirds game, and I think you want to give people the chance to kind of do one or the other. But yeah, I've seen teams in the past where they've had double headers. I know the Sharks, we used to do that when the Barracuda were also playing at SAP Center, where ticket for one would be good for both. So yeah, I suppose I'm not surprised. If it was a more common occurrence, if the Firebirds were playing more games in Seattle, I'd say maybe I would expect to see that. But since there's just 4, I'm not all that surprised.
Yeah, I was just thinking because of the logistics of clearing everybody out, cleaning it, and then like doors open, right, for the next set of people. Like, it just seems like a lot. The crew at Climate Pledge is going to be busy. Yeah, they're going to be busy for sure. So, but I'm sure they can handle it. It's a well-run building. It's a fantastic building. When can we go back, RJ? I want to go back.
I know. I miss it. I live right over here by it. I walk by it all the time. I'm just like, let me in. Just let me in.
Yes.
It's been too long.
Yes, and it's been the place of so many memorable moments, to come up with a fun segue there. So as we transition into the deep dive into our most memorable moments from this Kraken season, just want to talk about how we really want to incorporate the community into this, because the community has been all of it. And so we're super excited to hear everybody's like personal favorite moments from the Kraken season. And please make them personal. Let us know. You know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff we want to hear. And I'm sure everybody wants to hear, because that's the stuff that makes this sport and this community so great, is that we've all bought in and we're all such passionate fans around this, right? And over the last year, the Kraken have been such a mainstay part of our everyday lives. And I know that, people from the Kraken do listen to this from time to time. And I think it would be really cool if they got to hear all that stuff too. And so I think it's fun to, for us to also be a platform, not just to celebrate with everybody, about the Kraken's first season, and really put a period on the end of that first year as we, get towards the end of August here and look towards training camp, but also just to, be a platform, another way for the Kraken to hear how much they've meant to us and everything. I think that's going to be really special. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop the number once now, and then we'll talk about it again at the end, RJ. But for everybody who does want to call in and leave a voice message, the number is going to be 425-243-7053. So that's just like a Google phone number we set up that you should be able to call and leave a message. If it's not working, please let us know.
Yes.
And then, like I said, the idea, assuming it's not going to be like 1,000 people leaving voice messages that are like 5 minutes long each, the idea would be that we can incorporate those into next week's podcast episode and air those, and just kind of make it this, however long it's going to be, just like this mega podcast, just celebrating the Kraken and celebrating what an amazing first year the Kraken had. So excited about that. Again, numbers 425-243-7053, and then I'll repeat all that and everything else at the end. But let's go ahead and dig into our top moments from the Kraken season, RJ. We've got this list of 10 here that you have assembled, and I think it's a really good list. We were originally going to do our own separate list, but then we realized there's just way too much overlap to do something like that. So I got this list here, and I think this first one we're going to talk about is really going to be the only controversial one here, RJ.
Dylan, one sec, and I'm sorry to just derail all of this before we get started, But some breaking news just into my email inbox here. Got an email from Kraken PR. While we could still be on the news segment here.
Yeah.
Kraken strengthened broadcast team with 2 additional hires.
Okay.
Kraken announced that they have signed Alison Lukan to a new contract.
All right.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's a great move. And added Nick Olczyk to the organization's broadcast team.
Okay. So obviously Allison, thank God.
Yes.
Keeping Allison around. That's good news for everyone involved. Now, the other name sounds familiar, RJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I feel like I've heard that last name somewhere before.
Yeah.
Maybe even on this podcast.
Yeah.
So that Nick Olczyk, that is Eddie Olczyk's son. He has done a lot of broadcast work with the Blackhawks organization where Edzo was. And he has gotten everywhere I've seen, just like rave reviews from Blackhawks fans. He tweeted earlier this morning, just, thanks to the Blackhawks organization and looking forward to my next opportunity. Didn't say where. Now we know where.
Yeah.
And everybody on there commenting was talking about just how great he is, how much they're going to miss him in Chicago. We'll see what he ends up doing on the broadcast. I'm trying to scan this email real quick just to see if it says.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see because I'm not, obviously not being into the Chicago area, I'm not too familiar with his work, but you're right. Everybody on social media is acting like he's done a fantastic job there. So again, just great broadcasting team, just keeps getting better and better.
Here we go. Olczyk will work across both television and radio in addition to taking on a content development role with an emphasis on new media and streaming. So that's what he's going to be doing.
Now, that is interesting because I was thinking that, I do think the Kraken have room for more like video content, more stuff like for a YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. Like I have felt that. So the idea of them bringing in somebody to do that kind of stuff is a good idea in my mind. The streaming idea is interesting.
Right. Yeah. I wonder what they're going to be doing as far as streaming. I mean, hopefully we'll get some more answers on that soon, but certainly some exciting possibilities.
Yeah. I was going to say, obviously your mind goes to like a Hard Knock style type thing maybe, but it could also just as easily be just like, oh, marketing buzzword. Everything's about streaming now. So
new media, streaming. Yep.
Yeah. So those are the 2 things that pop into my mind first and foremost. It's a really awesome one, and then the potentially more realistic. It's buzzwords.
Yep. Agreed. So thank you, Dylan, for dealing with that. You're about to head right in this. You do this whole segue. I derail it with some breaking news, but hey, at least it's not after we're done recording.
That is true. I will take that every day of the week. All right. But now, getting back in, going into our deep dive into these top 10 moments here, RJ. And like I said, this first one is a little controversial. I think this is the one place where you and I would butt heads about like whether or not this should be a memorable moment, whether or not there should be something else here. Why don't you go ahead and tell people what we're going to be starting this list off with?
Okay, so number 10, and I will make my case for why this qualifies as one of the top 10 great Kraken moments of the season. November 19th against Colorado. Now, those who may not remember this game all that fondly, the Kraken were playing against the eventual Cup champs, the Colorado Avalanche, and it went about as bad on the ice as you could imagine. It was 1-0 Avs, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. And early in the third period, Nicolas Aube-Kubel scores to make it 7-0 Colorado. And to top it off, right off that next face-off, this is the moment I remember the most. Colorado just instantly gets a breakaway. The Kraken D pinch in, might have been like Cole Sherwood or someone getting a breakaway. And Philip Grubauer makes the save. And that might have been the loudest groo that I heard from the crowd all season. And everyone kind of stood up, gave applause. I mean, they're down 7-0. And honestly, I had never really seen that before. I've watched a lot of hockey, and I'd never seen a reaction quite like that from the fans. And this game, it was Kraken hadn't been doing all that well so far in the season, and it was ugly. Like, it was an ugly 7-0 game. And I was just wondering, how is the crowd going to react? Because they weren't booing the team yet.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, okay, when are they going to turn? Because this is an expansion team. You just don't know how people are going to react. And they stood up, they cheered, they got really loud, loudest point at any point in the game. And the Kraken turned it around at least a little bit, scored about a minute later on the power play, added another power play goal, and then scored a third one. It was a 7-3 final. The Kraken were never really in the game, but I think this was such a special moment because, look, any city will cheer and be loud and kind of get by an expansion team if they're playing their first home game. They go on a big winning streak. But I think this was something special that really just showed something unique about Kraken fans. And most importantly, it stuck with the players. This is a game that the players have consistently brought up, unprompted, when talking about the fans. And if you were there that night, seriously, just give yourself a pat on the back right now, because this is something that meant so much to the players. Now, we'll get to a few more positive moments in this top 10, but I don't believe that some of those would have gone the same way if not for this game. I think this game kind of has a ripple effect through the season, and it'll show up later in this countdown.
Yeah, and you make a good argument, and I'm going to go ahead and strengthen your argument here. Because
wow, okay.
Yeah, I know. Because not only do the fans help them score those three, and let's be honest, the fact that 2 of those goals were power play goals, like 2 power play goals in 1 period, like talk about memorable moments, right, for the Kraken that first season. But not only that, but they come out and that next game is that Washington game that they win 5-2. And then they go on to beat Carolina a couple nights later. If everybody remembers this, then they go on the road to Florida, lose to Tampa, but then beat the Panthers to give the Panthers their first home loss, right? Like that moment was so much more than just, hey, the fans are sticking behind this team that at that point had lost their previous 5 and were certainly on the road to losing that one and all that stuff. It was a galvanizing moment that really propelled the Kraken. And that was those next couple games were those first couple times that we saw, hey, this team does have the pieces to be competitive against anybody in this league, beating a couple playoff teams there. And so I think that, that meant so much to the players. It really energized the franchise as a whole and got them going for the first, what I would argue first kind of real memorable stretch of games, which was those next couple games. And that's what all I was really going to argue was just that maybe it's not that so much as the wins afterwards, but I do think that there's an aspect to that game kickstarting that next little bit there where they win 3 of their next 4, all of that kind of stuff. So I do think that it belongs on this list, and I do think that it's an important thing, and especially because as we're talking about community, the Kraken fan base, all that stuff and how important it all is, that's a prime example of how important this is and how important the relationship between this fan base and team is.
Exactly. And I think there's something to be said for kind of playing without fear and being able to do that, knowing that your fans are going to have your back no matter what. Yeah. It's something we see maybe the opposite side of in some maybe Canadian markets, the downsides of it. But I think it just is really important for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only other thing that people might put in there is the first 3-game win streak. This was also kind of the one thing that I was like, trying to figure out where to fit in on the list was their first 3-game win streak late in the year. And I know I'm biased because I was there for it. You know what I mean? And so that I'm sure plays part of it, but also still just the fact that we all wanted to see a 3-game win streak before the end of the season. You're down to just a handful of games left, but you got Matty Beniers now, and you beat the Devils in a shootout, which okay, we can build off of this. Then you get, Ottawa, you beat Ottawa, and then it was Colorado. And it was like, okay, we're going to have to step up and beat a really good team if we want to get this 3-game win streak before the end of the year, and if we want to do it all at home. And the team was able to step it up and beat Colorado fairly handedly too. Like there was just a couple moments Colorado looked dangerous, and of course they score on both of those. But, the team did a really good job there at the end of the year. So
absolutely shows how far they came from that game to the later Colorado game. All exactly. Right. So moving on to number 9 on the list. The first day of training camp. And I think this is just an exciting moment for anyone following the Kraken at that time. What an exciting time to get to see all the players finally on the ice together for the very first time, seeing the line rushes, seeing the D pairs. For a lot of us, it all kind of finally felt real. And for me specifically, it was the last day before I was actual media. I had gotten one of those tickets that they had, sent out to the fans. Like you could claim 1 or 2 for yourself for just one of the select days of training camp. I made sure to get the first day. I got on there really early and just kind of went as this half fan, half media kind of thing, just, trying to make it all work and trying to cover the event. And it was just a really interesting experience. I kind of almost felt the transition too, because I was watching it from the stands with the other fans, with Scott Brendan from Cheap Seat Sports. Shout out to Scott. He was good company that day. And then afterward, when the players went on to rink 2 after the main practice, and a few more guys just ran some drills and were doing other things, I went up kind of by the Starbucks to go see them do that on rink 2, and Everett and JT were there, and they were kind of watching the drills too, and I got to hang out with them a little bit, chat about what they thought of the first day of training camp. And they didn't really know who I was, like why would they, but they were really nice. I kind of explained that I was from Emerald City Hockey and hopefully I'd be covering the team one day, and they were just really nice, and it was fun to watch with them. So just a great memory, I'm sure, for everyone, but also just that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it was, as you said, it was the moment where it all finally felt real, right? Because before that, we had the expansion draft where we got to see a handful of players put on the jersey and stuff. But here you're seeing them suit up in pads, and you're seeing everybody, right? I mean, I remember everything was like, okay, is Blackwell, Yanni Gord going to practice and all that stuff, and Yanni Gord being in the red no contact jersey through training camp and stuff like that, and then yes, the excitement around who's going to be playing with who, right? After the expansion draft, it was just all of us were just playing around with potential lineups in our heads, trying to see how it's going to work as we go through the expansion draft and then free agency. And okay, wow, we're bringing in Jaden Schwartz. How's that going to work? Marcus Johansson. How's that going to work? You know what I mean? Like, who's fitting where? Oh my gosh, Philip Grubauer. Okay, so it's not going to be Drieger. How's that timeshare going to go? Right? And it was just like this very, like, it was very frenetic, even though nothing was really happening, month between the expansion draft and free agency and then the start of training camp. And so getting in and having training camp finally take place and answer some of those questions. And really, none of those questions were actually answered day one of training camp. How could they be, especially for a team of all these guys that, barely knew each other, much less had played together before. But it was just this time of, just nothing but optimism and just wide-eyed, like, wow, this is happening. There's a Seattle NHL team. You know what I mean? And I think that's the big takeaway for everybody looking back on that time, is just, it was just such a special moment of it becoming real and taking that next major step towards, opening night and the team existing and being a franchise in the NHL on paper, in the record books that'll last, for the end of time, kind of thing. And I just remember how excited everybody was and how special it felt. And just, like I said, it was nothing but good feelings. There was no negativity. Absolutely. Yet. It was just how good it all felt to see everybody there. There's, they weren't losing yet. There wasn't anything like that. It was just good times.
Yeah, for sure. And like with the lines and everything, I think we all knew that there wasn't a whole lot of insight from day one, but we didn't care. No. We're like, yeah, put the Gio Alexiak pair, just pencil it in. We love it. Yeah. Just went with it because it was just fun.
Yeah. Well, that was the other stuff too, because like Gio being named captain and all that stuff was right around in there, and like it was just fun because everything was happening. You know what I mean? And it was just so exciting, and every day brought something new that we could all kind of, wake up to, or kind of, wake up, spend an hour at work or whatever, and then have happen.
Exactly. All right. Fun times. I'm enjoying this already. I love the nostalgia. I love to reminisce. So moving on to number 8, and that's the 3-rink rush. So we talked a little bit about this going into the WHL buildings, how great that's going to be for the Firebirds. But the Kraken did that first, and I think they did it perfectly. Basically, what do you want to do when your arena isn't done yet? I mean, it was a dilemma they really had to face. Yeah. You can't play preseason games at your home arena, but you've got 3 great WHL barns in your state, complete with a ton of fans ready to see this brand new team. I think it was the perfect solution. Just one of those things that as soon as they announced, I'm like, yeah, this is brilliant. And I think it turned out just as great as everyone expected. I went to the games in Everett and Kent, and what I liked about them so much was how different they were. I mean, you really got to see 2 different WHL fan bases who, let's be honest, can sometimes beat each other's throats during hockey season, but they rallied together to support the same NHL team, each in their own way. And I just loved seeing the contrast there, but also just that great passionate support for the Kraken.
Yeah, and Again, just building off of the stuff from training camp, I just remember seeing the different line combinations, seeing who's working with each other, seeing the different rosters between games, because it's before they've made their final cuts, right? We were seeing Luke Hedman, right? First player in Kraken history coming in and looking okay and stuff, right? And it was just so exciting, especially just to see that first game against Vancouver and just to see it all actualized and get our first taste of the broadcast team too. That was a big thing. Everybody had questions. How's JT Brown going to do in his first experience doing this? How's it going to be having Forsland around? And what are the jerseys going to look like over pads? Because this is like the first time we're seeing them over pads in a game situation. Answer: pretty damn dope. Right? Like, oh yeah, it looked amazing. and that was, I think, another big thing. Was I just remember Twitter going crazy when guys came out for warm-up wearing those jerseys, and those pictures just spreading like wildfire across social media as we all got that first look and we all got pumped up to see them play, and we got to see that first game. And I remember trying to pay attention. Okay, what's their power play look like? What's all that stuff? And it was just so much fun, and it was such a joy. And I think it should be the textbook model for a team when you're entering the NHL to go and play kind of around your region at different rinks, just to help build that fan base and get them, excited for the incoming team. And I know that it's easier said than done in the Kraken's case, just because you had those WHL teams nearby. But it was so special for everybody involved. And I just remember all the people who got to go to those games and all the great stuff that they had to say about it afterwards. And just, again, how excited and pumped up they were. I mean, those are moments in life that they're never going to forget. You know what I mean? That you're never going to forget, that I'm never going to forget, even though I was just watching on TV, right? Of seeing this franchise be born. Just a really, really special moment.
And thinking back to that Riley Sheahan goal, the first preseason goal in Kraken history, one of those moments that just made it feel real in Spokane there against the Canucks. Just want to shout out to Riley Sheahan. He signed with Buffalo the other day. Yeah. Congrats on the contract there, and always remember that moment for sure. As well as many others from his time in Seattle. Fun experience. And then also, you got a sense of a little bit of magic, coming from behind in the Spokane game, and then also in the Everett game. It was a 1-0 game for a long time, and the Kraken pulled the goalie late. Jaden Schwartz with the tip to tie it, and then Jared McCann with the OT winner. What a game!
Yeah, no, they were just special times. Thinking back to them, you just get that rush of all those fun emotions and everything again. It's really fun.
Absolutely. So, moving on to number 7, and that is the skills showcase. So many memorable moments from this. I mean, it's a whole day. You can pick out a top 10 moments just from this one event. You got the hardest shot competition with Gio and Geeky and Alexiak, even Grubauer going at it for the hardest shot. The obstacle course, the puck juggling relay. So many great choices to choose from as far as moments there. But one thing I loved about it was that it was a family event. The players kind of brought their kids. It was fun for everyone. And that the Kraken kept the tickets cheap and really made this an accessible event to go to. I talked to so many fans afterward, asking them, what they thought of the event. Because really, the Kraken had never done anything like this before. I was curious what people thought. And I can't tell you how many people, the first thing they said was how glad that they could finally come see the Kraken players in person with their families. Because remember, at that time, a game was $200 a ticket, and the prices weren't going down. It wasn't like late in the season you could snag one late, and that's pretty expensive. So this event really made everything accessible for the fans, and in a really fun way too, where you just got to see the players' personality unfiltered, not having to worry about a game or winning anything. It was just a great day, and the Kraken need to do this again. Need to do it every year. Can't wait to see what Matty Beniers, maybe Shane Wright can come up with as far as the skills they can show off.
Yeah, and the big question of, can we see a personality from Shane Wright? That would be a big one.
I think so.
I think so too.
Oh, I'm a strong believer in that.
I mean, we've talked about it. Anytime you get to see NHL players' personalities, like I talked about with the Morgan Geeky Pizza Hut presser, like that was like this unprecedented moment for us as hockey fans, RJ, as lifelong hockey fans, that a player would like go along with a bit for that long, like, oh my gosh, right? And so it was just a special thing to have them all there, to have them with their families out there on the ice too. It's a fantastic moment. Like I don't know. It's just one of those things, like it almost doesn't even need to be said how great and special that is. And yeah, just hope they keep doing it. I don't see why you wouldn't turn that into a tradition. It just wins all the way around. Yeah,
such a great success afterward. And I remember also getting to talk to some of the players afterward, and asking, I believe it was Morgan Geeky, who's the best chirper out there, the chirping skills. And he said Yanni Gord. And I got to ask Yanni a couple days later, do you agree with that? Do you think it's you? And he's like, no, it's not me. I'm like, okay, then who is it? And he's like, well, I don't know. I can't tell you anyone. So maybe that means it is me.
Yeah.
Some great lighthearted moments there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What do we got
moving
next?
on. Yes, so we've got at number 6, the Jordan Eberle hat trick against Buffalo. That was a fun moment. It was one of those early season moments where you felt like, hey, this team might have turned a corner. This team might actually be good. It feels like a long time ago since, but Buffalo actually had a pretty hot start to their season, and they had a good record going into this game. It wasn't just, oh, it's Buffalo, it doesn't count. No, the Sabres were looking pretty good at this point in the season. And of course, the first hat trick is just a big milestone for a team, something the fans are really waiting for, and something you never really know for sure when it's coming, too. You can have a lot of 2-goal games that don't result in hat tricks, and especially the shot on the third goal as Eberle skates in and just kind of trickles under Dustin Tokarski, goes in slowly. Just the build up there, you really felt it in the crowd and in the reaction too. It was just a fantastic moment to be there for in person.
Yeah, and a natural hat trick too at that,
that's right,
which is always fun too. Yeah, and it was at a good moment for them too, because the Kraken 3-6 going into that game, struggling a little bit. We all knew it, we remember. But it was coming off a rough loss against Edmonton too. It was like our first experience. It just kind of like, oh wow, okay, this could be rough. And so to come back and answer in that way, and Eberle was going, and we were like, okay, because he was the guy after the expansion draft. The one thing everybody knew was Eberle was going to be on the top line, and this guy's going to be the guy who's going to lead the team in scoring. Right? Like that was the messaging really from everybody at that time. And so to see him get that first hat trick in team history, it all just felt like destiny was coming together, and we were seeing all this stuff, and we do have, this guy is going to be the guy that's going to lead this group of forwards and all that kind of stuff. And it was a fun time still in those early days.
Yeah, and he had kind of a slow start to the season too, and it felt like the floodgates were finally opening. Scored early in that game at Montreal a few games ago, and you also felt like the Kraken could do special things at home too.
Yes.
They had that really rough road trip to start the season, but hey, if we can just get to these home games, that things are going to start going right. So it was just a great moment there.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 5, and this is a big one. We're getting into a lot of big ones here as we get into the top 5. The home opener, and what a memorable game! What a build up. Kraken, as I mentioned, had that rough road trip to start the season, but they were coming home, brand new building, and we all got to finally really appreciate Climate Pledge Arena. Now, if you remember, they had just taken the barricades off the construction site a few days prior. It was still, in a lot of ways, felt like an active construction site. I was there for morning skate, and there were welders working on the seats and everything. You could tell it was definitely still a work in progress. But it was just so great to be inside and see that everything was ready to go for an NHL hockey game. You had the build-up with Gary Bettman was there and kind of gave a little speech dedicating the arena. It's always great when you have the commissioner in attendance. The fans knew what to do, that's for sure, even though, maybe a cheer would have been good just because, he helped get the team here and whatnot. But you got to boo the commissioner. And then before the game, too, Yeah, the big intro and everything. Todd Lewicki giving his Vince McMahon style speech
Yes.
about how we got the team here. We've got it. We've done it. Here it is. And of course, raising that 32 banner that stays in the rafters now. Just really special, even before puck drop.
Mhm.
And then you get to the game, Yanni Gourde with the breakaway like 10 seconds in, almost blew the roof off the place, but still a great start, because the one thing I wanted out of that game was for the Kraken to score the first goal. Just started things off well, and at the end of the first period, it came Vince Dunn with a snipe into the top corner against Thatcher Demko, and everyone was rocking. Just such a great moment there, and yeah, the Kraken didn't end up winning the game, but always one of those special memories for me, and something that I think everyone who was there, it's going to stay with them forever.
Yeah, no, it was such a fantastic time. And yeah, the game ended in the L or whatever, but it was one of those games where it felt like, more so than any of those games on the road trip, like the Kraken were really in it. Like, okay, we can see the blueprint for winning and all that kind of stuff. And we saw that in the next game against Montreal in a Stanley Cup kind of rematch, 100+ years in the making. And they, handled Montreal like it was nothing. But that first home opener, it was just so much fun. I remember doing the post-game live for that one, kicking that one off, and everybody was just so pumped to have seen it on TV and everything. And then all the reports of people leaving the arena for that first experience in-house, and everything everybody had to say about the Twins, right? And how unique that was, and how all that worked, and what concessions were there and what was good. I remember that was the big thing early on, right? Everybody just determining, basically what was worth the price tag and what wasn't, and all that stuff, and just all the fun stuff about the in arena things that the Kraken were doing. It was our first look at all that kind of stuff. What's the in arena entertainment going to look like? What's the intermission games that they're going to do with fans going to look like? All that kind of stuff. And so it was just, again, it was so exciting that, even though the Kraken lost that game, I don't think we really spent much time talking about the game at all anyway, just because it was such it was the first look, and it was just such a fun and special moment overall that I know, again, it's all of these are moments nobody's going to forget, but those, especially for those in attendance, that's just such a special thing.
Yeah, to know what a Kraken game is actually going to feel like, home game. Yeah, great point with all the in-arena experience stuff too, because that's just something nobody had seen before. And the Twins certainly made an impression on everyone. Yes. It was great. That's one thing I remember from morning skate, is all the players just looking up at the Twins, just kind of trying to take it all in. And it's something we saw from road teams coming to play their first game in Seattle all season. But to see the Kraken players doing that, it was something special to remember.
Yep. Oh man, I just love all the away teams, the kind of tennis heads, as they're like, where do I look? It's so much fun.
Exactly. So that was a fun preview for that.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to number 4, and I'll let you take the lead on this one because you were in the building for this and I was not. And that is Matty Beniers' first NHL goal in that game against New Jersey, the first game of that eventual 3-game win streak that you talked about a little bit ago. Tell us, Dylan, what was it like? And remind me again, because I was at home sidelined with COVID, but I was still so excited watching the game on my computer.
Yeah, so, at this point of the season, we're 67 games in. This is game 68. We all know how the season was going. At the time, they were 23-44 going into this game, and it was just like, everybody, it had kind of turned into a little bit of a slog. I think we can all agree, but it was one we were all in together. That was, again, the main takeaway from those post-game lives. We were always in it together, and we always ended up having a good time. But we had just gotten this shot in the arm of Matty Beniers. He was finally here. Michigan's season ended a little bit earlier than many of us thought, running into the juggernaut of Cole Guttman, I believe. And so Michigan season was over. We knew Matty Beniers was coming. We were so pumped for that. We saw how fantastic he had developed over that last season in Michigan. We were super excited to see this, offensive weapon, somebody who can come in, help out this Kraken power play. We knew he could probably help out the PK too. We knew, that he was a great two-way player, all that stuff. And then we get the smallest of tastes against the Calgary Flames the game before, where in his first period of NHL hockey, he makes a no-look cross-ice pass to Ryan Donato to get his first NHL point, and we're just like, wow, We have not seen this from the Kraken, from a member of the Kraken, like ever, or certainly not in a long time to that point. So everybody was riding this super high to come and see Matty Beniers' first game in Seattle. We wanted to know, was that first game a fluke? Is he really for real? All of those questions kind of thing. And boy, does he answer. Just every time he steps on the ice, it's just electric. He ends up, I believe, leading the forwards in ice time for that game because Hackstall just keeps going back to him, because every time he's on the ice, he's driving possession. He's making sure that the puck is ending up in the New Jersey end of the ice, and he just looks so fantastic. And then for that moment, I think it was the third period. It was later on in the game. And again, this is a close game. This game ends up in a shootout, remember. So this is a big deal thing. And they line up for that offensive zone face-off kind of thing. It wasn't a power play, was it? I don't think so. But he wasn't taking the face-off, because that's why I'm thinking it might have been a power play.
I think it was a power play.
Yeah,
I think it was a power play.
Yeah, and he looks over and he has the moment with Vince Dunn, where it was kind of like, if the puck can get over to you, you're going to go for it. And so he knows, I got to get to the net. And he does, and he gets to the net, and the puck takes this weird way of getting there, and McCann gets a weird shot off, and it kind of just trickles out over to the right side of the crease there. Goalie's not in any position for it, but Matty Beniers is. And he's able to bury it, and then he loses his effing mind as he's just scored his first NHL goal.
As does everyone in the building.
As does everybody in the building. That building was louder in that moment than I ever remember hearing it. Everybody was standing up. Most people were jumping up and down if the press bridge was anything to go off of, because more so than any moment, and there was lots of moments where I felt like that press bridge was going to shake off its hinges, that was the moment where things were really getting dicey in my mind, because everybody was just so excited. I think that was the only time you could not hear Nirvana, the Lithium goal song playing, because everybody was screaming so loud and was just so excited. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I'd ever been in a building, I said this at the time, that was so electrified from one moment like that. Like, that was just, peak of being somewhere in person. And that's really why we do any of these things live, right? That's why we as fans go to sporting events, why we go to concerts. It's for that shared communal experience of you and tens of thousands of other people sharing in a moment that you all know is special and cannot be repeated. And to be there for that was just super awesome. And then obviously, kickstarted Matty Beniers. Yeah, he scored couple more goals, scores a lot of points in his remaining games with the team and all that kind of stuff. And we're all super pumped for him moving forward. But I just remember his face and the freak out and how excited the rest of the team got. They weren't playing for much at that point in that season, you know what I mean? But they were just so happy for that kid joining the team, and they knew how much that moment meant to not just him, but everybody in that building, and they celebrated appropriately.
That game was the first time where I really just thought to myself, we have something really special here. Mm-hmm. There's the question in the calculator, this guy might be really good. Yeah. But that game, I think, just kind of confirmed it in my mind. And that goal was huge. And I remember just being here, sitting in my chair, still, quite under the weather. And as that goal scored, I'm like, Matty scored. I can't believe it. He actually, of course it happened in that game. Like, he actually got it done in a season where it felt like so many things just kind of went wrong, and like, oh, of course that went wrong. It felt like finally it was like, of course it's going right. Mm-hmm. As soon as he joined the team. And also my other memory from that game too was in overtime. When he had that long shift out there and even juggled the puck around a Devils defender and cut to the net, just really showcasing that skill that we hadn't seen from anyone else. And I was just trying to really quickly go and cut that moment out so I could tweet it, just get the video, because just highlight real stuff from Matty Beniers. And I'm sure it was just fantastic to be in the building for that one.
Yeah, it was just the clean zone entries, man. Like, I don't think you can appreciate Matty Beniers until you're in a building and you just watch him enter a zone and protect the puck all by himself. It's special.
Absolutely. I know Dylan just up there in the press box, like, oh yeah, those clean zone entries. Gotta love it.
He's like entering the zone and immediately shifting backwards to put his body between the puck. I'm just like, this is what we need.
Absolutely. All right, that was a fun one. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna move on to number 3, and that is Kraken Day. So that is March 2nd. Kraken Day, I guess, happens every year. The Kraken won't have a home game on Kraken Day this year, unfortunately.
Why would the league do that to us? It's not that hard.
Come
you
on.
got one job. Create a complicated schedule. That's it.
Yeah, no, you know, mix together 32 teams and all the different dates for 82 games. How hard can it be?
Yeah.
The Kraken will be in Detroit on Kraken Day for a road game this year. But let's look back at Kraken Day last year, the first ever Kraken Day. There will only be one first ever Kraken Day. And this is the first of the two games we're going to talk about where I feel like it couldn't have happened without that Colorado game, because this was a game that, you know, in the marketing and everything was really centered around the fans.
Yep.
And I feel like the players really felt this responsibility to give the fans a memorable game here. And you have to look at the context in which this game happened to. The Kraken were in the middle of, well, not in the middle, they had a 7-game losing streak going at this point. And in fact, this game would be their only win in a 12-game stretch. I mean, it was rough. They they had just lost. Well, I think they had lost their last. Let's count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, they were
5 home games. Yeah. 5-game home losing streak, 7-game losing streak overall. And I think the team and the players really just kind of took pride. Look, we need to do something. This is a special game for everyone. And it started in kind of the predictable way where we're all like, okay, of course, this is happening again, because they go down 2-0 early in the second period. And we know how these 2-goal deficits had gone. But all of a sudden, there was a spark and something changed. And the Kraken scored 3 goals in 2 minutes and 39 seconds. So 3 goals in under 3 minutes to take the lead. And it's one of those moments where the energy in the building just kind of builds off each successive thing happening. And I love this when you have a number of goals just kind of back to back to back, where it just escalates. The energy in the building as everyone kind of starts to believe, and you start at Wenberg, Järnkrok, and then Yanni Gord with that third one. Just so great to be in the building and just feeling the electricity in the air. And then the Preds tie it. And then you have what might be my favorite goal of the season. I have to go back and look, but it's certainly one that comes to mind right away. Colin Blackwell's shorthanded goal to take the lead. Again, might be my favorite of the season. He takes 4 or 5 whacks at this puck under UC Saros, finally knocks it in, and he was so fired up. That celebration. I think you can pretty easily lip read the whole "let's effing go" from Colin Blackwell. He was excited. The fans were excited, and they got that one done.
Yeah, and you know, it is important to I think put it in context of, yes, we were playing Nashville. And we had a dicey history up to this point with Nashville. You know what I mean? Like, our games against Nashville had not gone well. They were games that we felt like were games that we should have had, all that kind of stuff. And so for them to come into town on Kraken Day, you know, lead after 1, get the Matt Duchene power play goal 7 minutes in. But then, like you said, that spark of Alexander Wenberg shooting a puck and scoring about 30 seconds after that Matt Duchene goal to put the Preds up 2-0, because that's the other aspect of this, is that it happened like right away. And it was. I remember being on the couch watching this game and just sinking into the couch, just being like, okay, it's going to be one of those days, and reaching for my phone. Because I'm just like, I can't handle this again. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen this all season kind of thing. And then Wenberg comes in and scores, and you're just like, wait, what? Did I see that? Is that actually what's happening now? And then your interest is piqued. A minute and a half later, you got Järnkrok going, scoring against his old team, all that kind of stuff. And it just built from there, and it turned into such a special night, obviously, with the capper being that shorthanded Blackwell goal, as you mentioned. It was just a special moment kind of really thrown in there during, you know, the most dogged of days of this Kraken season. It was just, it seemed endless at some times, some of what was going on. But to have this moment and to have the team seize it and be like, no, this is our day. This is our thing, and we're going to make sure we make this happen and just put on a fantastic and exciting show for everybody.
Yep, no, they sure did, and I remember the post game live for that. Afterward, it was just kind of such a relief to share that with everyone.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just the energy on that one, because we just did not want an eighth loss in a row. I remember those post game lives have been getting a little repetitive
Yep.
with the losing and kind of in the same fashion, and
Yep.
it was a fun departure from that.
Yeah. No, it was rough at times. Like I said, it was all good because we all had each other. That's I think the only thing that really got all of us through it was we all had each other, and we always ended up having a good time on those post game lives. I remember we always ended up joking, and that was super fun. But yeah, it was a rough point of the schedule. I don't think anybody can deny that.
No, no, certainly not. That was a very rough stretch. But for number two, moment number
Mhm.
two, let's go before all of that, back to
Yep.
the good early optimistic times for the team's first ever game, first ever
Yep.
regular season game in Las Vegas. And this was certainly one of those it's finally real moments
Mhm.
for you and I. And this memory will certainly always stick with me because the two of us got to go travel to
Yeah.
that game and watch it together, which was just something that's special in a way I
Yeah.
struggle to describe because we've had a lot of great hockey moments in our friendship,
Mhm.
and this one certainly, at or near the top of the list. Certainly for me because you have your team winning the Stanley Cup, at the time the Penguins, which was probably a little more special for you than it was for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly an all-time hockey memory, and getting to be down on the glass for warm-ups. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
is one of the benefits of not going there as media, at the time, is that we could be right up close
Mhm.
to watch all of warm-ups, and that's what it really sunk into me. Like this is real.
Yeah.
They're about to play a real game that means something. Um, and yeah, and the game itself was good too. I know you've got the infamous kick-in goal or whatever, but the Kraken made a game of it,
Yeah.
and that's something we were hoping for. As it was 3-0, that they would come back, and they did come back to tie it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all the special stuff, all the lead up to it, all the fun stuff outside of Vegas. It's Vegas; they know how to put on a show, all that kind of stuff, right? But all the Kraken fans that were there, and how excited everybody was, and how many Kraken fans were there. That was like my first big
There were a
takeaway.
lot.
Was like, oh, awesome! Like this is cool. That was like the first glimpse, really, into at least for me, because I wasn't up there for training camp and preseason, of like how awesome this fan base was going to be. Was just like how many
Mhm.
people made the trek out to Vegas and all that. And let's not forget too, right? It was earlier that day we find out guys are in COVID protocol, right?
It was crazy.
It was like this whole mess of like the team traveling, and then there was like COVID protocol issues, and then it was just who's gonna be able to play, who's gonna get clearance, because like literally up until game time, basically, we didn't know exactly who was gonna be in the lineup. So I remember all that going on. But then, like you said, for me it was like seeing them come out for warm-ups as we were fighting off all the other fans to be there at the glass to try to record it for everybody and everything. And it was that moment of like I just remember having this moment of, oh yeah, they're a team. like that's
Mhm.
all that goes to the mind. You know me, right? Like everything, I get surprised very little and all that kind of stuff. And so for me it was like it wasn't like this wow, they exist and all this stuff. It was just like, all right, they're an NHL team now. Like they look legit because they're doing warm up shenanigans and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like it was more so like being in an opposing barn and everything, and especially a place like Vegas that was, a little upset about losing the whole new kid on the block moniker and everything. So to have them come out and just have it feel like they were an NHL team was like a big deal for me. It was like being in that hostile environment and just being like, hey, we look like we belong. That's awesome. You know what I mean? That was my
And,
big takeaway.
yeah, no, that's great. And I remember, I'm glad you brought up the COVID stuff because that was crazy going into the game. We thought that a number of Kraken players were going to be out, and this was going to kind of spoil the debut.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, of course, we got to deal with this. And I remember being outside the arena. We were there
Hmm.
already. I think we had just finished talking to a friend of the show, Ken Bolke from Sinbin
Yep.
Vegas, and we walked away from him, and we're going back out to the front of the arena. And I'm just scrolling Twitter, and I see, wait a sec, they're in. All of them, they're in.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
cleared COVID protocol. We're like, what? So it was just an insane moment there. And then post game live,
Yes.
Do you remember leaving the game and trying to rush back to our hotel room to get there for post-game live in time? And that one, not, even so much for the Kraken, but for ECH, that was such a special moment, I think, for me and for us, because it was the first one that we did. We didn't know how it was going to go.
Right.
A lot of unknowns, and especially being, at the hotel, we didn't have, our nice rooms behind us. We didn't have our normal setup. We were at a hotel room. I think I had to put a shirt over the lampshade to get the lighting right. We had some technical difficulties with the hotel Wi-Fi where it didn't exactly go as planned. But I was amazed to see how many of you stuck with us, because we even had to restart the stream because it was, it wasn't going right, and it, took a few minutes. And we still had so many people on there, and everyone chat was buzzing. Everyone was excited to talk about how the Kraken did in their first game. And it was one of those moments where I felt like, hey, we might have something special here, that this is how it's going, despite everything that kind of went wrong at the beginning. And I think it went for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. We weren't sure how long it was going to go.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we'll just keep going until everyone, kind of drops off. And then no one did.
Right.
Everyone was there just past midnight even to experience that with us, and I will always remember that.
Yeah, no, it was so much fun, and it is one of those moments that I think about that a lot, actually, and just how janky it was with the whole laptop stream, the Wi-Fi issues, as you mentioned, the shirt to try to diffuse the light. We couldn't fit 2 chairs in between beds, because like we were using the desk between the 2 beds, and we couldn't fit 2 chairs in there, so that was a struggle. Like all of it was so janky and just thrown together. But yeah, I mean, it was just everybody's shared excitement over what it was, and we all knew how special that moment was, that first game, and we all just wanted to come together and share that with each other, and that's really what all of the post-game lives became. And yeah, it just is so special. All of those have been so special, but that one was the one where, yes, you could look and say like, wow, this is going to be something, and it's going to be a heck of a ride.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know we went and got some pizza, like 12:30 a.m. pizza right after that, and we just couldn't stop talking about how great that was, and just we couldn't believe how well it went.
Yeah, no, it was really awesome, and I think that might have been the conversation where we also decided, you know what, maybe an hour cap on these isn't a bad idea.
Exactly. Yeah, we were like, we might need to shorten these. I mean, the people kind of go forever, but yeah, might be best if we cap them. But that was a special one for sure.
And real quick before we move on to the number 1 moment, my big takeaway from that game, Tanev. Tanev's for real. He was a force in that game, and that was our first inclination of that. And Donato scoring the first goal in franchise history, all that was cool too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that was a huge moment anyway. I mean, we were kind of freaking out, like, wait, who is it? Who got it's Donato, right? Donato, okay, he's the answer to the question.
Total snipe right in front of us too, like one of those where you could just see it on a line, leave his stick right there. It was awesome.
Yep, off that rebound, he just had it.
Yeah.
So that was nice. All right. And talking about this, it makes me want to just like move that to number 1, but there's so many. I mean, I feel like it'd be 3, 4 number 1s. But on to number 1 on this list, and that is the final home game of the regular season, Fan Appreciation Night. And I think this is kind of where everything came together to put things in a positive direction on the season. And this is the second of the 2 games where I feel like couldn't have happened without that Colorado game. And you've seen this consistently in those games where it's something special for the fans, and the players know it, and they feel it, and they go above and beyond to make sure that they play well for those special moments. And I think we certainly saw it in this game. 3-0 win for the Kraken, notable for a few different reasons. I mean, first of all, a shutout, given all of the defensive woes on the season for the Kraken. A shutout, and a convincing shutout too. Chris Drieger in net for that one too. And also, the Philip Grubauer had kind of gotten his game back together. It had been a rough season for Drieger. To see him put everything together in that game was huge. Adam Larson scoring a big goal in that game. I know you'd love to see that.
Yep.
And just the contributions from everyone. I know. Yep. Victor Rask scoring a goal. I mean, it was just the perfect game for you, Dylan, I'm sure. But yeah, it just there was no low moment. There was no lull. It was just 2 goals in the first period. You got the sense that this game was going to be a good one, and it was. And I talked about the Colorado game to start off this list, but that's something that the players brought up unprompted after this, because of course it's fan appreciation night and they get this big win, and you talk about it afterward, and all the questions are, what did it mean to win this game in front of the fans? All the standard questions. But I felt like the answers weren't just the canned answers. Well, it means so much, and they're a great crowd. But they talked about, look, you go back to this Colorado game where we were at the lowest of the lows of moments we possibly could have had, and these fans stuck by us, and we never forgot that. And so for a game like this, we wanted to go out there and get this win for them because we knew how important it was. It was the final home game, and I think it just really set the tone kind of for the whole organization heading into the offseason, where, yes, this was a rough year, but things are looking up and they're getting better. And it's a tone that I think they've kind of stuck with all offseason, with the team improving the way they did, with getting Shane Wright at number 4 in the draft. It feels kind of like a straight line almost from that game to now. And it's certainly just, I think, deserving of the number 1 spot just for the significance, I think, of what it means. And I mean, for post-game live, getting to join you for that, because I was so eager to join you after the media stuff. It felt like a party. It felt like a celebration of everything that we had all gone through together as a community this season, and that's why it made the number 1 spot for me.
Right, and the big thing I'll always remember from that game, I mean, besides the fact that it was one of maybe 3 games all year that it just felt like the Kraken were in control of from start to finish, was all the community stuff, was the fan appreciation stuff, that they did that right. All the fans and community members we knew, right, that got to go out there and get jerseys off the backs of these Kraken members, all the people that we knew were there for that games, all the signs that they had, and all the memories everybody was sharing for the season, kind of similar to what we're doing here now, right? Everybody just talking about all those moments, people coming into town that weren't local to make sure that they can, see the Kraken for that inaugural season, and everybody getting to meet and all of that stuff. It was just a special event all the way around, and one that for sure 100% felt dedicated to the Kraken fan base. And I think the Kraken did an excellent job of doing that, not just on the ice, but off the ice too. And I think everybody knew that. And that's why, technically it wasn't their last game of the season. You got that weird one-off game against Winnipeg on May 1st, the makeup game or whatever. But it did very much feel like that for all of us in the community. It was that moment where we all got together and we were just like, wow, we made it, and look at all the friends we made along the way, and all the great times we had, and all the memories that we'll cherish forever, and all of that stuff. And it was just kind of the perfect end cap to that season.
Look at all the friends we made along the way. That really kind of sums up the mood and what was most important. And yeah, I'll share another memory from this. I was with my friend Charles from Circling Seattle Sports, and he had kind of gone down to meet this like roving group of Kraken fans that some of we knew, like Medeiros was in there, Caitlin was in there. They had a whole bunch of in the group, and he had met with them, but I had to do something, I forget what it was, some kind of coverage thing before the game. And I was like, do you think there's time before the game that we could find them? And he's like, yeah, I don't know where they are, but we can walk around the concourse and try to find them. And so we walked around, basically did a lap, and then finally we found them, took some pictures with them, gave out some stickers and some pins, and just those moments are just so awesome to kind of see the people that you've interacted with all season, through the post games that, a lot of out of town and just came in for this game because it was that special game. And to be able to finally meet people for the first time, put a face to the names, and just such a wonderful experience. And then also to, maybe even take some pictures for them as they're getting the jerseys off the players' backs, because I got that nice vantage point and the zoom on my camera. Such a fun day. I will never forget that.
Yeah, no, it was a night for the fans, and it was definitely made by the fans, and it was absolutely awesome. And that's, I think, a perfect segue to go back into talking about us wanting to hear all your favorite moments from the Kraken's first season. What was the most memorable moment for you as a Kraken fan? When was it, was it your first game experience seeing them? Was it the first time that you felt like the team was real? Was it the first time you realized, hey, that's going to be my player and that's the jersey I want? You know what I mean? Like there's so many great things to choose from, and I know for many of you it's going to be hard to narrow it down to just one moment, but I'm super excited to hear what everybody has to say, and I'm super excited to kind of make that next podcast episode really dedicated to the community and just everybody appreciating the season that was, that phenomenal first season as we really move full steam ahead into season 2 now. I'm really pumped for it. So once again, going to give the phone number for people to call and leave a voice message if you want to hear it in the next podcast. That number is going to be 425-243-7053, and then you can also feel free to email us. The email on the website there, was it contact at Emerald
contact at emeraldcityhockey.com.
Yeah, you can email us there. We'll read them next week on the podcast if you want us to. You can contact us through social media as always at Emerald City HKY. You guys all know that already. And I'm super excited to see what everyone has. I think we're going to we need to put a deadline on this though, just so we'll have a couple days to compile it and get it all ready. So should we do Friday or Saturday, RJ? What do you think?
Let's see. Let's do Saturday. I think we can work with this couple days. So Saturday the 20th?
Yeah. So why don't we say, like 8 o'clock Saturday night, everybody. That's going to be the deadline. That's when we'll call it off. That gives you a week to figure out your best moment and get it into us. And super excited to hear what everybody's got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. As fun as this was going through all the moments with you, even more so, I'm looking forward to next week's episode because I know there are 1,000 different moments and stories out there from all of you, and I can't wait to hear them.
Exactly. So with that, we'll get everybody, let you all think about it. And until next time, we'll see you next time.